The sun had barely risen when Amara stepped out of the cramped city bus, straightening her blazer as the wind tugged at her neatly styled braids. Her heart beat fast, not from nerves, but anticipation. She had graduated top of her class in business analytics, interned under pressure, built actual results for real companies, and today, she had an interview at one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the city, Halston and Keyes. Her friend Rachel walked beside her, stilettos clicking confidently against the pavement. Rachel was blonde and charismatic, a good friend, but academically average. Amara had helped her with almost every university project, but she didn't mind. Rachel was kind, always encouraging, and had insisted they apply to the same companies together. The front lobby of Halston and Keyes was a palace of cold glass and polished marble. A receptionist barely looked up as they entered, handing them forms to fill out. Amara noticed the way the receptionist's gaze lingered on Rachel, her expression softening slightly, while her eyes skimmed past Amara like a shadow. The waiting room was full of tension, resumes clutched in hands, nervous foot tapping echoing against the floor. Amara noticed the lineup, mostly white, mostly dressed like catalogs. She shifted in her seat, smoothing out her resume. She had double-checked every bullet point, practiced every question. She was ready. A man in a sharp grey suit opened the door. Rachel Moore. Rachel smiled, gave Amara's hand a squeeze, and walked in. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 4. Finally, Amara Brooks. Amara stood, straightened her back, and walked in. The panel looked up 2 men, 1 woman, all middle-aged. There was a strange flicker in the man's eyes. A pause, then a forced smile. She introduced herself. She answered every question with calm authority, backed with examples and clear metrics. When asked to analyze a mock scenario, she offered insights none of her classmates had ever caught during practice. She could see it, the impressed lift of the woman's eyebrows, the subtle nod. She left the room feeling strong, like she had owned it. A day passed. Then 2. On the 3rd day, Rachel called, voice shaky. "Hey, I got the job." Amara blinked. "What?" "They called me this morning. Said they were excited to bring me aboard." Amara waited, heart sinking. "Did they say anything about me?" There was silence. Then Rachel whispered, "They said you weren't the right fit." Amara didn't reply. Her fingers gripped the phone tighter. "Amara, I know you were better. I mean, they asked me the same questions. I even stumbled on 2 of them." Amara forced a breath out. "It's okay." But it wasn't. She didn't sleep that night. Not because of jealousy, but because she had seen this pattern before. All her life, she'd had to be 10 times better just to be seen. And even when she was, it didn't matter. Across town, at the Halston and Keyes office, Rachel sat nervously in her new cubicle. She had a neat little desk, a nameplate, and access to client data. But the workflow was faster than she expected. She felt unsure, flustered. During her first team meeting, she was asked to present a data interpretation task. Her voice trembled. Her notes were thin. Later that day, Mr. Halston himself walked through the office, stopping at her desk. "Ah, our new recruit," he smiled. "Let's see what you've got." Rachel showed him the report. His smile faded ever so slightly. He said. "We'll talk later." That evening, Rachel sat in her apartment, chewing her lip. She scrolled through her phone, heart pounding, and sent a message to Amara. "I think I'm in over my head." Amara stared at the message. She didn't reply. At Halston and Keyes, the senior team held a private meeting. The report Rachel had submitted contained several oversights, key insights missed, wrong assumptions made. Mr. Halston tapped his finger on the table. "Who interviewed the other girl, Amara Brooks? Pull up her resume." Mr. Halston leaned back in his chair as a young assistant, placed Amara's resume on the polished oak table. He scanned it, brow furrowing. Top of her class. 2 internships. Certifications in advanced data systems. Fluent in Python and The room was quiet. One of the senior partners cleared his throat awkwardly. She had an impressive interview, but, well, Rachel had a more polished look. She fit the culture. Halston looked up sharply. The culture. The partner shifted uncomfortably. Clients feel more comfortable when the face in the room looks familiar, approachable. Halston tossed the resume onto the table. "You mean white?" No one spoke. The room, full of soft murmurs and old mahogany, suddenly felt colder. "She was the better candidate," Halston said bluntly. "You hired for the wrong reasons. And now we have a mess on our hands." Meanwhile, Rachel sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her laptop. Her inbox was overflowing with unfamiliar terms, missed requests, and flagged errors from her first presentation. Her team leader had asked her, gently but clearly, to spend the weekend reviewing basic concepts. She felt humiliated. She had always known Amara was smarter, sharper, and more disciplined. But now, for the first time, she realized how much of the world had pretended not to notice. She texted again. "Amara, I need your help. I think I got the job meant for you." The message hung in the air like smoke. Amara didn't answer for hours. She was walking along the riverfront, watching her own reflection shimmer and break in the water. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "You'll always have to work twice as hard to get half as far. That's just the world, baby. But never let it change your fire." But right now, the fire felt like it was dying. She had spent years believing in merit, believing that excellence was the answer. But what did it matter when people still looked past her? When a company she dreamed of joining couldn't see her worth? Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "If I talk to them, if I tell the truth, would you consider giving them a second chance?" Amara stared at the screen. Was it pity? Was it guilt? Or was Rachel finally seeing what she had refused to see before? At Halston and Keyes, Mr. Halston stood in front of his office window, watching the sunset. He tapped his pen against the glass, lost in thought. The numbers on Rachel's reports weren't just wrong. They had cost them a minor client. Nothing explosive, but enough to raise eyebrows, enough to expose weakness. He turned to his assistant. "Get me her number. Amara Brooks. Tell her I want to meet." The next morning, Amara sat at a small cafe downtown, nursing a coffee she could barely taste. She didn't know why she'd agreed to come. Maybe she wanted closure. Maybe she wanted to look him in the eye. The door jingled, and Mr. Halston entered. He was alone. No suit today, just a sweater and worn eyes. He approached with a hesitant smile and sat across from her. "I owe you an apology," he began. "We made a mistake. A serious one. You were the right person for that job. But our judgment was clouded by things that had nothing to do with skill." Amara said nothing. "I know a sorry doesn't fix it," he continued. but I'm not just here to apologize. I'd like to offer you a role, one that matches your talent. A better role, in fact, leading a new project we're developing." Amara raised an eyebrow. "Because you need to fix your image." He didn't flinch. "Because we can't afford to keep ignoring the truth. And because I want to fix what's broken, starting with who we give a seat at the table." She sipped her coffee. "I'll think about it." He nodded. "Fair." As he stood to leave, he added quietly, "For what it's worth. Rachel told me everything. She said if we were smart, we'd hire you before someone else did." When he left, Amara sat there, the offer swirling in her mind. Was it justice? Redemption? Or just another version of being needed only when someone else failed? She didn't know yet, but she felt something rise again. Not anger, not pride. Power. Amara didn't answer the offer right away. She let 3 days pass without a word, just enough time for them to sit with their discomfort. In those days, she received another job offer from a small but rising startup where diversity wasn't just a quota, it was their foundation. They had seen her potential without the need for damage control or apologies. But still, something about Holston and Keyes lingered. Maybe it was the idea of rewriting the system from the inside, of forcing change not through protest, but by being undeniable. On the 4th morning, she replied with a simple email. "I'll meet with your project team." No promises. Back at Holston and Keyes, Mr. Holston read the message and exhaled slowly. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. He forwarded it to the department head and added a note. "Treat her like the future of this company, because she is." Rachel watched the events unfold from the sidelines, sitting silently in her cubicle. Her second week had been no easier than the first. The team had started looking past her in meetings, assigning her smaller, less significant tasks. She didn't blame them. She blamed herself. It had taken her far too long to recognize that the playing field had never been equal. She had never really understood privilege until she saw how much was handed to her just for looking a certain way, and how much Amara had been denied despite earning everything. She typed up an email to Amara 3 times and deleted it each time. There was nothing she could say that didn't sound like guilt. In the end, she settled for something simple. "If you join the team, I'll step aside. You deserve this more than I ever did." Amara read the message while sitting in a quiet conference room, surrounded by the project leads of Holston and Keyes. They were pitching a high data transformation initiative, one that required deep analysis, creative thinking, and risk management. As they explained the plan, Amara's eyes scanned the whiteboard filled with bullet points and buzzwords. Within 5 minutes, she saw the flaw. The structure was upside down, all marketing, no substance. They were trying to build a house with no foundation. When they finished talking, she stood up and walked to the board. Without asking, she picked up a marker and began crossing out lines. Then, she started redrawing the framework, explaining it step by step in a calm, steady voice. One of the executives leaned forward, eyebrows raised. Another began nodding slowly. No one interrupted her. When she was done, the room was silent. Then someone clapped, and then another. Mr. Holston, who had been standing in the back, smiled. "You've just redesigned a 3-month proposal in 15 minutes, he said. Amara capped the marker and looked at him. "I told you I was the right choice the first time." He nodded, and now we listen. Later that day, as she walked through the hallway toward the exit, She passed Rachel near the elevators. They both paused. Rachel looked exhausted. Her eyes were softer now, not with pity, but humility. "I meant what I said," Rachel said quietly. "If you take this position, I'll step down." Amara looked at her for a moment, then replied, "Don't. Not because you feel guilty. Stay and do better. That's how change starts." Rachel blinked, tears building, and nodded. "I'm proud of you, you know," she said. "You were always the smartest one in the room." Amara gave a small smile. Took the room long enough to notice. When she got home that night, she sat by the window, watching the lights flicker across the skyline. Her inbox pinged the official offer letter had arrived. The role was bigger than she expected. More responsibility, a better salary, and a note in the email: "We won't make the same mistake twice." But Amara knew it wasn't about mistakes anymore. It was about a pattern, one she was now in a position to break. She clicked accept, not for validation, not for them, for every black girl who had been told, not a good fit, when she was exactly what the world needed. The first day in her new role didn't feel like triumph, it felt like pressure. Amara stood in the glass-walled corner office that now bore her name on a brass plaque. The room was spacious, filled with sleek furniture and digital screens. But her eyes weren't on the decor. She was scanning the project outlines stacked on her desk, already finding gaps, redundancies, and places where data had been twisted to look good rather than be good. She didn't want to just be the woman they hired to fix a PR blunder. She wanted her work to matter, and to set a precedent so powerful that the next woman, who looked like her, wouldn't have to fight the same battles. During her first meeting with the senior team, she laid out her expectations plainly. "We're not going to cut corners to impress shareholders," she said. "We're going to make systems that actually work. I wasn't brought here to decorate your strategy. I'm here to lead it." A few eyebrows raised. One executive smirked, but Halston gave a quiet nod. "Understood," he said. As the weeks went by, Amara's fingerprint started showing on every major report. Client retention began rising. One skeptical department lead, who had initially ignored her suggestions, now rerouted all big decisions through her desk. She had become the brain of the floor, the one everyone turned to when the situation got complex. But not everyone was celebrating. Behind closed doors, murmurs began to swirl among the old guard. "She's too aggressive. She doesn't play nice. Why does she always have to correct everything?" Amara heard some of it, directly or indirectly. A receptionist mentioned that one of the older partners had referred to her as Miss Harvard in a mocking tone. Another colleague said someone had complained that she didn't smile enough in meetings. It stung, not because it surprised her, but because it was so predictable. Every time a black woman tried to lead, she was labeled too bold, too sharp, too direct. Traits celebrated in white men were considered flaws in her. She didn't let it stop her. She stayed late. She triple-checked her data. She kept winning. But one Thursday afternoon, a major report went out with a key miscalculation. It hadn't come from her, but her name was on the front page. The client noticed and flagged it sharply. Rachel came rushing into her office an hour later, eyes wide. "Amara, that was my section. I didn't double-check the conversion rates. I'm so sorry." Amara looked up slowly. "You're sure?" Rachel nodded, guilt flooding her face. "I'll tell Halston. You shouldn't take the fall." Amara sighed. You should have told me before it went out. I know, Rachel whispered. I was trying to prove I could handle it. There was a long pause. Amara stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the sprawling skyline. Then she turned. I'll fix it, she said. But from now on, you bring everything to me before it goes live. Understand? Rachel nodded quickly. I will, thank you. Amara's tone was firm, but not cruel. She could have thrown Rachel under the bus. Part of her wanted to. But she also remembered what it meant to be given a second chance. And this time, she would lead by example, even if it hurt. That evening, she stayed past midnight, rewriting the report from scratch and attaching a follow-up memo that explained the fix, the reasoning, and how they would prevent the mistake from happening again. She didn't place blame. She just delivered truth. Halston read it the next morning and didn't say a word. But later, he forwarded the client's reply to the whole team. Mistakes happen. What matters is how you respond. This is the kind of leadership we respect. The murmurs began to die down. They were being replaced by something else. Respect. Reluctant perhaps, and slow growing, but real. Rachel started staying late, too. Not to impress, but to improve. She listened more. She asked questions. Amara noticed. She didn't say anything, but she noticed. 3 months after her first day, Amara stood at the podium during a major corporate summit. Her project had doubled client satisfaction across 5 sectors. She was introduced as the most impactful hire of the year. As she spoke, she caught sight of a young black intern in the back row, watching her with wide eyes. That was the moment it clicked. She wasn't just fixing things for herself anymore. She was opening a door. After the summit, Amara stepped off the stage to a standing ovation. Handshakes followed. Business cards, praise. But the applause wasn't what moved her. It was the quiet nod from that young black intern in the back. It was the recognition in her eyes. That moment, that connection, meant more than any executive's approval. Later that evening, Amara rode the elevator up to her office. Shoes in hand, exhausted but wired. The floor was quiet. Most of the staff had gone home. She liked it this way, just the hum of the lights and the view of the city, blinking against the night. She sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and stared at an email she had written but not sent. Subject, company policy, revision, hiring, and bias training. She'd drafted it weeks ago. It wasn't angry or accusatory, just honest. It detailed how unconscious bias had shaped hiring decisions in subtle, damaging ways, and laid out a new framework for blind screening, panel-based evaluation, and diversity-focused methods. It was long, bold, the kind of email that could shake things loose or shake things up. She had hesitated to send it before, but not now. She clicked send. The next morning, the ripple hit immediately. Some praised the initiative. Others bristled. The executive board requested a meeting. She walked in, calm and clear. This isn't just about correcting a mistake, Amara said. It's about rebuilding the structure that allowed it to happen. You can't say you value excellence and keep ignoring where excellence is showing up. There was pushback, of course. One board member asked, "Aren't we overcorrecting here? Shouldn't we just focus on the best talent, regardless of background?" Amara leaned forward, her voice steady. "I agree. We should hire the best. But that hasn't been happening. You've been hiring the most familiar. I'm just asking that we widen the lens." Halston spoke up then. She's right. We say we're future-focused. Let's prove it. The vote passed. That afternoon, Rachel knocked on Amara's door, holding 2 coffees. She set one down on the desk, then hesitated. "I saw the policy proposal," she said. Amara looked up. "What did you think?" "I think it's overdue. And I think you're changing this place more than anyone ever has." Amara gave a small smile. "It's not just about this place." Rachel nodded, looking down at the steam curling from her cup. "You know, I used to think I earned my spot here, that it was all about how hard I worked. But now I realize I never had to carry the weight you did. I never had to prove my worth just to be seen." Amara's gaze softened. "That's the difference, Rachel. I didn't want special treatment. I wanted fairness. That's all." There was a long pause. "I'm still learning," Rachel said quietly. "Then keep learning," Amara replied, "and help others learn too." That weekend, Amara was invited to speak at a university alumni event. The auditorium was filled with students, bright, hopeful, many of them from underrepresented backgrounds. She stood behind the microphone, her voice ringing clear. "I used to think that working twice as hard would guarantee success. But I've learned that talent alone isn't always enough. Systems are slow to change. People have blind spots, and sometimes you'll be overlooked, underestimated, or pass by not because you aren't brilliant, but because someone else refuses to see it." The room was silent. "But I also learned that when you do get a seat at the table, you bring others with you. You challenge the system, you demand better, and you do it without shrinking who you are." Thunderous applause followed. Somewhere in the back, that same intern from the summit stood up, clapping with tears in her eyes. As Amara left the building that night, her phone buzzed. A message from Halston. "Board approved your mentorship program. We launch next quarter. You'll lead it." She smiled. Change had come. Not just in policies or titles, but in hearts, in culture, in belief. And it had started with one girl, overlooked but unshaken, who refused to let rejection define her, who rose, not in bitterness, but with boldness. Because truth doesn't stay buried forever. Eventually, it hits hard. And when it does, it doesn't just knock, it breaks down the door. Thanks for listening. Hit subscribe for more stories that'll keep you up all night. Drop a comment from where are you watching, and Wartime is now there.